Good morning. Welcome to my thought for the day. We are in Luke chapter 13, verses 6 to 9, in which Jesus is recorded as having told a parable about a man who had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came to find fruit on it and found none. And he said to the vine dresser, "Lo, these 3 years I've come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none. Cut it down. Why should it use up the ground?" And he answered him, "Let it alone, sir, this year also, till I dig it about it and put on manure. And if it bears fruit next year, well and good, and if not, you can cut it down." Now, whenever I read this parable, it always reminds me of the first 7 verses of Isaiah chapter 5. If you get a chance today, read it. Do read it. That is Isaiah's prophetic word about God planting a vineyard and digging it and caring for it and working on it and looking for it to produce fruit. And it all it produces is wild grapes. And I don't know what wild grapes are, but it yields wild grapes, and they are not useful for the purposes for which the vineyard was planted. And in that parable in Isaiah, God is talking about his vineyard. He says it quite plainly in verse 7. "For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the people of Judah are his pleasant planting. And he looked for justice, but behold bloodshed, for righteousness, but behold a cry." So in that parable in Isaiah, God is going to trample down. He's going to send disaster upon the vineyard. And this is similar to what's happening to this fig tree here in this story. The owner of the vineyard for 3 years has looked for fruit on this fig tree, and there is no fruit. But there is the promise of more time, another year of treatment, of care, of putting manure on. And if there's still no fruit, then it will be cut down. And most people read this parable as referring to the people of God, the people of Israel, the descendants of Abraham. That God had repeatedly tried to bring them back to himself, tried to get them to produce fruit for righteousness, to be the people he'd always longed for them to be people who served him wholeheartedly, who sought him. And here in this situation where Jesus is amongst the people of God, God's own people, rejected God's own Son. This is a huge sadness to Jesus. We see it repeatedly in the Gospels. He wept over Jerusalem. He was saddened by everything. He was horrified that these people who, if they'd been some of the characters from the Old Testament, the people of Sodom, the Queen of Sheba, they would have come, they would have listened. The people even of Nineveh, the terrible Assyrian enemy, would have responded to the messages of Jesus, to the preaching of Jesus, let alone his miracles. But God's own people rejected him. It was, to Jesus, I think, a great, great sadness. And here is the warning. There's still time to turn. There's still time to change. There's still time to bear fruit. There's still time, but there won't always be time. And although this is written primarily for the people of Israel, it's also a warning for us, that we only have one life to live, and we should make sure that our light shines as brightly as it possibly can, that we make a difference for Jesus in our generation, that we testify to our faith in him at every opportunity, that we make opportunities, perhaps. I think that's a wonderful thought. But we need not to worry and weary God by a second-rate Christianity, let's call it that. A Christianity in name, but in no action and no deed, and nothing that makes any difference in this world in which we live. This world is very dark. We need to let our light shine. I just think that if you get a chance, do read Isaiah 5 1-7, and think about it. It's the same picture. You know, we don't grow fruit trees just for the pleasure. Some trees we grow for the beauty, you know, for the spring flowers, or for the flowers they bear, or maybe for the colour of their leaves in the autumn. We grow many trees like that for their beauty. But a tree that is grown for its fruit, if it bears no fruit, it's a waste of space. It's a sad thing, isn't it? But the wonderful thing too is that God does the work. God does the digging. God does the manuring. God does the caring. We just need to respond. We just need to let the fruit grow. And as we apply the scriptures to our lives, the fruit will grow naturally. We don't have to labour. We have to simply respond to God, and the things he gives us to do will be a joy to do for him. That's my thought for the day. Have a great day. God bless you. Bye-bye for now.